We'll kick things off in the Rocky Mountain region, where a dispute has been brewing for decades over a four-legged predator that some people love and others love to hate. I'm talking about wolves, and a long-standing debate over the extent to which these carnivorous mammals should be protected or hunted down and killed. Denver-based reporter Amanda Pampuro has the story.
Wolf Education and Research Center. This is Jeremy. How may I help you?
Hi, Jeremy. It's Amanda Pampuro with Courthouse News. How are you doing today?
Hi, Amanda. I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
I'm well. Did I catch you at a good time to talk about wolves? I'm really trying to narrow down on what changes maybe have been brought about by the ESA over the last year, what's driving some of our increases in hunts, and that elusive middle ground where everyone gets along and wolves live happily ever after.
Yeah, good luck again with that.
Here's the question that's probably going to determine your outlook on wolves. Do you feel threatened by them? If you live in rural America or think there's any chance you're going to defend livestock against wolves, chances are good you favor the aggressive policies making it easier to hunt them. If you're thinking about the ecosystem's need for a keystone apex predator to fill a niche, you probably think lethal measures are overkill. Given enough space and prey, gray wolves need very little help from us. It's really the humans that are being managed when we talk about wolf conservation. States set policies for when wolves can be defensively killed or actively hunted, and how ranchers should be compensated for predation.
I go to Yellowstone every couple of years, and I'm always, I'm always excited to see the wolves in the park. But, I don't want them across my pasture fence. I'm Bonnie Brown. I'm the executive director for the Colorado Wool Growers Association, and I've been working on predator management and wildlife conflict issues for the Colorado sheep and wool industry for the past 21 years. Sheep are defenseless animals. They're wonderful for forage management and grazing. They were one of the first domesticated animals in history, but they don't have natural defenses against predators.
In 2020, Colorado ballot measure Prop 114 asked voters to mandate the state reintroduce wolves by 2023. It passed, but by the narrowest of margins. 57,000 out of 3.1 million votes tipped the scale. That's a small town number, like Littleton or Commerce City, could have changed the outcome.
Now, because of Proposition 114, we're looking at putting another voracious predator out there on the ground that is going to really make things difficult for livestock production in Colorado.
What are your concerns with there being wolves next to livestock production?
Well, obviously, depredation, bad enough when you find your livestock that's dead, but it's really traumatic when you go out there and you've got a ewe or a mama cow and she's still alive. And she's been eaten on and torn up. And the average person in Denver, has absolutely no concept of that's what really happens. This is not a Disney cartoon we're dealing with.
One of the more popular questions I receive from folks is what makes good wolf habitat? And the easy answer to that is wherever there's not people. Jeremy Heft, and I'm the biologist with the Wolf Education and Research Center. Wolves are highly adapted animals. They can live in lots of different terrain. They can adapt to different types of prey according to their different habitats.
The 1973 Endangered Species Act created protections for animals like the wolves, which were listed as endangered.
Back in 1973, that was really a big movement at that time to preserving some of those species that traditionally are present in our ecosystem in North America, but have been extirpated for one reason or another. And gray wolves became one of the first predators on the list in 1974. And it took all the way from 1974 until 1995 to figure out how to reintroduce wolves. And at that time, the biologists believed that the best habitat to handle wolves would be in Yellowstone National Park.
Yellowstone is an ecosystem restoration legend. Once upon a time, wolves were driven to local extinction, so deer and elk ran rampant, gnawing young trees and grass so short the stream bed started to collapse and birds had nowhere to nest. Then, in 1995, wildlife managers reintroduced the apex predator and watched the ecosystem bloom. Streams were healthier, beavers and birds and biodiversity thrived. The tourists loved it.
Biologically, wolves have done great. They established territories and then certain members dispersed.
Today, a few thousand wolves populate portions of the Rocky Mountains, with an estimated 1,200 wolves in Montana. Is that success, or is that a new problem?
There is no magic number that says, well, this is what the number should be. And it's the same thing whether we're talking about mule deer or if we're talking about elk. The biological flexibility of most wildlife populations are far greater than the social acceptance for those biological extremes. My name is Brian Wakeling. I am the Game Management Bureau Chief for Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. Since 2011, Montana has had level of hunting that has been legal to participate in. And during that time, animals have been harvested and the population has remained fairly stable.
There's been 2 documented wolf-human attacks in the country over the last century, and livestock takes are statistically low. Still, Montana passed several laws this year making wolves easier to hunt. Idaho similarly sanctioned up to 90% of its wolf population being culled. More than being driven by ecology, most people say these laws are largely political. But Wakeling points out state wildlife management is inherently political. The people elect representatives who pass laws controlling policy according to the will of the people.
It's extremely difficult for the American public to talk about politics at this point in time without getting into a large degree of hyperbole. We're talking about wolf management. I think wolves are here. They're part of our landscape. So much of it becomes divisive, but at the same time, what we're trying really, really hard to do is to find a level at which we can manage all of our wildlife species for the benefit of all the citizens.
Have you ever seen a wolf?
Yes, I have. I've also seen mountain lions and I've also seen grizzly bears.
I'm terrified of mountain lions.
We have these fears based on things that, because of our lack of knowledge, the frequency with which mountain lions cause any physical harm to human beings, it's almost unheard of. People get struck by lightning more frequently. I've always feel incredibly fortunate when I do have the opportunity to have those encounters. So far, I haven't had a negative encounter with any of them, but you respect them and give them the space they need.
Last year, the Department of Interior delisted wolves under the Endangered Species Act. While that is being challenged in California, activists in Montana are going after wolf snares because they can also kill protected species like lynx and grizzly bears. In Wisconsin, several Native American tribes are using their treaties to stop the state's wolf hunt. Meanwhile, rural communities in Colorado are also hoping to overturn state-level protections and allow wolf kills.
So what does lethal control look like to you? Does that look like if I see a wolf on my property, I can shoot it? Does that mean 10% of the estimated population should be killed, or there should be hunting licenses? How does that work?
Bonnie Brown?
The migration plan got it right. It said that if wolves aren't causing a problem, they can stay on the landscape, and if they are causing a problem, they have to be removed.
What other tools did the state and various ranchers have to keep wolves away from cattle?
Different breeds of cattle may more resistance to predation, more likely to avoid predation.
You know, Fladry and range riders.
That's why, cowboying was so popular.
Basically, if a rancher is going to raise cattle, which is basically prey, in predator country, then you want to make sure that your cattle is a less vulnerable prey on the landscape so that wolves will continue to go after what they should, the elk, the deer. My name is Karen Vardaman, founder director for Working Circle. For me, what it came down to was the people part of it. You can focus on fighting against all the things you fear or don't want, or you can focus on the things you do want. And what's amazing is that there's more things we have in common that we do want than not. And the fact is, what I've learned is that wolves don't have to exist on the landscape at the expense of ranchers. And ranchers don't have to exist on the landscape at the expense of wolves. We're not asking them to love wolves, We're just trying to support them so that they feel comfortable sharing the landscape with wolves. You got to lower those initial barriers first. It starts with the trust and the relationships and sincere understanding. A lot of times folks will go in and they want to reach out to ranchers, but they're doing it for their own agenda. It's not that they really care about them, right? And ranchers see right through that.
That's why the story of the wolves is the story of us. Success is as much about bringing together different people from different communities as it is about nurturing the call of the wild.
Wildlife advocates filed 3 lawsuits this year over the federal government's decision to end Endangered Species Act protections for gray wolves. You can find more on those suits and other wildlife-related legal disputes at courthousenews.com.